The sun was rising over the quiet airbase, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and pink. Birds chirped lazily in the distance as pilots went about their morning routines. It was a peaceful scene, one that had become almost predictable for Captain Sarah Mitchell. For years, she'd flown countless missions from this very base, routine patrols, training exercises, and occasional emergency calls. But today would be different. Today, everything changed. Sarah wasn't like the other pilots. While most joked around during downtime or talked about sports and movies, she often found herself staring at the sky, lost in thought. Her colleagues teased her sometimes, calling her Space Cadet because of her fascination with UFO sightings and strange phenomena. She'd always been curious about things beyond Earth's atmosphere, but lately, her interest had turned into something more serious. Over the past few months, she claimed to have seen unusual lights darting across the night sky during her flights. Lights that moved too fast and behaved too erratically to belong to any known aircraft. Most dismissed her stories as wild imagination or stress-induced hallucinations. Even Jake, her co-pilot and closest friend, often laughed when she brought it up. "Come on, Sarah," he'd say. "You're starting to sound like those conspiracy theorists who think aliens are hiding under Area 51. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that what she saw was real. Something out there didn't want to stay hidden anymore. That morning, Sarah arrived at the hangar earlier than usual. She sipped her coffee while reviewing the day's flight plan, a simple 2-hour patrol along the coastline. Nothing exciting, just another routine mission. Or so she thought. As she walked toward her jet, she noticed something odd. The sky above seemed different. There was a faint shimmer, like heat waves rising off pavement on a hot summer day. Except it wasn't hot and there were no roads nearby. "What do you make of that?" she asked Jake, pointing upward. He squinted, then shrugged. "Probably just some weird weather thing," he replied with a chuckle. "Relax, Sarah, you're gonna give yourself gray hair worrying about glowing skies." But Sarah couldn't relax. That shimmer unsettled her. It reminded her of the strange lights she'd seen before, only this time it felt closer, more tangible. Still, she pushed her doubts aside and focused on prepping for the flight. After all, they had a job to do. As their jet roared down the runway and lifted into the air, Sarah kept glancing at the sky. At first, nothing seemed amiss. Clouds drifted lazily by, and the ocean sparkled below. Then, about 20 minutes into the flight, it happened. The shimmer grew brighter, pulsating like a heartbeat, and then, without warning, the sky split open. It wasn't a cloud breaking apart or lightning tearing through the heavens. This was something else entirely. A massive crack formed directly above them, stretching across the horizon like a wound, opening in the fabric of reality. Through the gap, something unimaginable appeared. Gigantic metallic structures loomed overhead, each one larger than any building Sarah had ever seen. They looked like ships, but not like anything built by humans. These were sleek, angular, and bristling with weapons. Star destroyers. Jake's laughter died instantly. His hands tightened on the controls as his eyes widened in disbelief. "What? What is that?" he stammered, his voice trembling. Sarah didn't answer right away. Her heart raced, but her mind remained eerily calm. Deep down, she knew this moment would come. It had been building up for weeks, months even. She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick folder filled with papers. "Remember how I told you about the lights?" she said, flipping through the documents. "Well, turns out I wasn't crazy after all." Jake stared at her, then at the folder, then back at the monstrous ships hovering above them. "Are you telling me you knew this could happen?" "I suspected," Sarah admitted. "And now we've got proof." The folder contained years' worth of research, photos of unidentified flying objects, radar data showing unexplained movements, and testimonies from pilots around the world who'd experienced similar encounters. Some of the documents were marked classified, which meant Sarah had gone to great lengths to obtain them. Hacking into restricted databases, piecing together fragments of information, and connecting dots that others refused to see. To her, it wasn't paranoia, it was preparation, and now it was vindication. Back on the ground, News of the sighting spread like wildfire. Pilots gathered in the hangar, whispering excitedly about what Sarah and Jake had witnessed. Some still doubted, convinced it must be some kind of experimental military project. Others were terrified, wondering if an invasion was imminent. Amidst the chaos, Colonel Harris summoned Sarah to his office. "Care to explain this?" he demanded, holding up one of the classified pages from her folder. His tone was stern, but there was a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. Sarah took a deep breath. "Sir, I've been investigating these sightings for years. What we saw today isn't human-made. Those ships, they're alien." Colonel Harris raised an eyebrow. "Alien? You expect me to believe that?" "It doesn't matter what you believe," Sarah shot back. "The evidence is right here. Look at the photos, the radar readings, the eyewitness accounts. This has been happening for decades. We just chose to ignore it." For a long moment, the colonel studied the documents, his expression unreadable. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Even if I wanted to trust you, and I'm not saying I do, we need more than theories and speculation. We need undeniable proof." Sarah nodded. "I know exactly where to find it," and with that she began outlining her plan. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Humanity's days of ignorance were over. The airbase buzzed with nervous energy after Sarah and Jake's return. News of the massive ships hanging ominously in the sky had spread like wildfire, but no one knew what to make of it. Some pilots joked nervously, trying to mask their fear with humor. Others huddled together, whispering theories about government experiments or secret military projects. A few even speculated that this was some kind of elaborate hoax designed to test their reactions under pressure. But Sarah remained silent, her mind racing as she prepared for the inevitable questions. Colonel Harris wasted no time calling an emergency briefing. Dozens of personnel crammed into the small conference room, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. Maps and satellite images covered the walls, though none of them could explain what everyone had seen. At the center of it all stood Sarah, clutching her folder tightly. She felt dozens of eyes on her, some skeptical, others hopeful, but she didn't flinch. This was her moment to speak up, whether they believed her or not. "All right, Captain," Colonel Harris began, his voice firm but tinged with frustration. "You've got our attention. Now tell us what you know." Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward. She opened the folder and laid out its contents on the table. A jumble of photos, radar scans, handwritten notes, and classified documents. The room fell silent as she began explaining how she'd pieced everything together over years of research. "It started with strange lights I saw during night flights," she said, pointing to a grainy photo of a glowing orb darting across the sky. "At first I thought it was just my imagination, but then I noticed patterns, movements that didn't match any known aircraft or natural phenomena. So I dug deeper." She flipped to another page, showing radar data captured by multiple stations around the world. Each chart displayed unexplained, blips moving at impossible speeds, zigzagging erratically before vanishing completely. "These aren't anomalies," she continued. "They're consistent, and they've been happening for decades." A murmur rippled through the room. One of the senior officers leaned forward, frowning. "If these sightings are real, why haven't we heard about them before?" "That's the thing," Sarah replied. "We have heard about them. People have reported seeing UFOs for centuries. Governments have investigated them too. The Roswell incident, Project Blue Book, the Tic Tac videos released by the Pentagon. But most of us chose to ignore it because it sounded too far-fetched. Too scary." Her words hung heavy in the air. No one spoke, but the tension was palpable. Finally, Colonel Harris broke the silence. "Assuming you're right, and I'm still not convinced, what does this mean? Are we dealing with visitors? Invaders? What?" Sarah hesitated. She didn't have all the answers, but she did have a theory. "I think they've been watching us," she said slowly. "Maybe studying us, waiting to see if we pose a threat or if we're worth contacting." This revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Pilots exchanged uneasy glances, while engineers scribbled furiously in their notebooks. For years, humanity had wondered if life existed beyond Earth, Now, faced with undeniable evidence, the reality felt overwhelming and terrifying. But Sarah wasn't done yet. She reached into her folder and pulled out a document marked Top Secret. It was a transcript of intercepted communications between various global intelligence agencies. According to the text, similar sightings had been reported worldwide, though governments had kept them hidden from the public. Some nations had even attempted to shoot down unidentified objects only to fail miserably. Others claimed to have made contact, though details were scarce. This isn't just our problem, Sarah emphasized. It's a global issue. Whatever's out there, they're advanced enough to evade detection or retaliation. If we want to survive this, we need to work together. Her statement sparked heated debate. Some argued that preparing for war was the safest option, better to strike first than risk being caught off guard. Others insisted on diplomacy, reasoning that attacking would only provoke hostility. Amidst the chaos, Colonel Harris raised his hand, demanding silence. "Enough," he barked. "Speculation won't get us anywhere. We need proof. Something concrete we can take to higher authorities. Something that proves beyond doubt that these things are real." Sarah nodded. She'd anticipated this reaction. Reaching into her bag again, she produced a USB drive. "I recorded everything during the flight," she explained. "Video footage, audio logs, instrument readings. You can verify it yourself, but there's more." She paused dramatically. "Tomorrow morning I'm going back up there, not to fight but to communicate." The room erupted in protests. "Are you insane?" someone shouted. "You'll get yourself killed." "I'm not asking for permission," Sarah shot back, her voice steady despite the rising panic around her. "This is bigger than any of us. If we don't try to understand who or what they are, we'll never know why they're here, and ignorance won't save us." Colonel Harris studied her carefully, weighing the risks. On one hand, sending her back into the unknown was reckless. On the other, doing nothing might leave them vulnerable. After a long pause, he sighed. "Fine, but you're taking backup. And if anything goes wrong, you abort immediately. Understood?" Sarah nodded. "Understood." The next day, the entire base gathered to watch as Sarah climbed into her jet once again. Her co-pilot, Jake, volunteered to join her despite his earlier skepticism. Together, they taxied down the runway and soared into the sky, heading straight for the largest ship looming above. As they approached, the shimmer intensified, surrounding their aircraft in a blinding glow. For a split second, Sarah feared the worst, but instead of destruction, the light enveloped them gently, pulling them inside the alien vessel. When the brightness faded, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with towering machinery and glowing panels. Standing before them were beings unlike anything they'd ever imagined, taller than humans. Their bodies gleamed like polished metal, reflecting faint hues of blue and green. Their eyes glowed softly, emitting a warmth that somehow calmed Sarah's nerves. Despite their intimidating appearance, there was no sign of aggression. Instead, they seemed curious, almost cautious, as they observed the two intruders. Jake gripped the controls tightly, his knuckles white. "What do we do now?" he whispered. "We talk," Sarah replied, pulling out a handheld device loaded with translation software. Developed secretly by NASA, it was designed to decode alien languages based on mathematical patterns. Taking a deep breath, she activated the program and spoke clearly into the microphone. "My name is Sarah Mitchell. I come in peace." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one of the beings stepped forward. Its voice resonated like chimes, each syllable carrying an otherworldly melody. "We are aware of your presence," it said. "Why have you come?" Sarah swallowed hard. This was it, the moment humanity's fate might be decided. "We wanted to meet you," she began, "to understand why you're here, to show you that we're not enemies." The being tilted its head as if considering her words. Behind it, others exchanged silent gestures, their movements fluid and precise. Finally, it spoke again. "Your species is unpredictable, dangerous, yet intriguing. Before Sarah could respond, the chamber lit up with holographic projections, images of Earth's cities, forests, oceans, and deserts. Scenes of war flashed alongside moments of beauty, children laughing, artists painting, scientists experimenting. It was as if the aliens were evaluating humanity's potential, for good or evil. Sarah glanced at Jake, who looked equally awestruck. Whatever happened next, one thing was clear. Humanity had entered a new chapter, and Sarah Mitchell was leading the way. Inside the alien vessel, Sarah and Jake stood frozen, their hearts pounding as they processed what was happening. The towering beings surrounded them, their glowing eyes scanning every movement. The air hummed with an energy that felt both alien and strangely comforting. Despite the surreal setting, Sarah forced herself to stay calm. She knew this moment could define humanity's future, and she wasn't about to let fear get in the way. The lead being tilted its head slightly, studying Sarah with an expression that seemed almost curious. "You seek understanding," it said, its voice resonating like a chorus of bells. "Yet your species has shown little regard for balance." Sarah nodded, her grip tightening on the translation device. "We've made mistakes," she admitted. "But we're learning. We want to do better." The alien paused, exchanging silent gestures with its companions. Then it spoke again. "Your actions have consequences beyond your planet. Your wars, your pollution, your disregard for harmony. These things concern us." Jake leaned closer to Sarah, whispering nervously, "What does it mean by beyond our planet?" "I think they're saying we're affecting space or maybe other civilizations," Sarah replied quietly before turning back to the beings. Her mind raced. How could she explain Earth's complexities to creatures who likely viewed humanity as reckless? She decided to focus on hope, the potential for change rather than past failures. "We know we've caused harm," Sarah continued, speaking slowly so the translation software could keep up. "But we're capable of amazing things too. Art, science, kindness. These are part of who we are. If you give us a chance, I believe we can prove ourselves worthy." The aliens exchanged more silent signals, their movements fluid and deliberate. Finally, the lead being stepped forward and gestured toward a shimmering panel on the wall. Images flickered to life. Scenes of Earth's destruction, deforestation, oil spills, nuclear explosions. But then the display shifted, showing contrasting images of humanity's achievements. Astronauts floating in space, musicians performing symphonies, doctors saving lives, and children planting trees. "You are contradictory," the being said after a long pause. "Capable of great creation and great destruction. This concerns us deeply." Sarah swallowed hard. She had expected skepticism, but hearing their doubts laid bare stung. Still, she refused to back down. "I won't deny that we've done terrible things," she said firmly. "But not everyone is like that. There are millions of people working to fix what's broken. Please, don't judge all of us based on the worst among us." The chamber fell silent as the aliens considered her words. For several tense minutes, no one moved or spoke. Sarah glanced at Jake, whose face was pale but determined. She realized how much trust he'd placed in her by coming along, and how much responsibility rested on her shoulders now. Finally, the lead being raised a hand, signaling for attention. "Very well," it said. "We will observe further. Show us proof of your intentions. Demonstrate that your species is capable of growth." Relief washed over Sarah, though she knew this was only the beginning. "Thank you," she said sincerely. "We'll do everything we can." Back on Earth, news of Sarah's encounter spread rapidly. Governments convened emergency meetings, scrambling to decide how to respond. Some leaders argued for immediate military mobilization, fearing the aliens might attack if provoked. Others advocated for diplomacy, urging humanity to present its best face. Amidst the chaos, Sarah became the linchpin of the effort. With first-hand experience and undeniable evidence from her flight recorder, she convinced world leaders to collaborate instead of compete. Colonel Harris played a key role in organizing the global response. Under his guidance, teams of scientists, artists, engineers, and diplomats worked tirelessly to create a presentation showcasing humanity's potential. They called it Project Unity, a bold attempt to demonstrate Earth's capacity for creativity, innovation, and compassion. Artists painted murals depicting scenes of peace and cooperation. Musicians composed symphonies that blended traditional instruments from cultures around the world. Scientists prepared demonstrations of renewable energy, technologies, and medical breakthroughs. Even ordinary citizens contributed heartfelt messages of hope and unity, recorded in dozens of languages. Every piece of the project aimed to highlight humanity's diversity and resilience. Sarah oversaw the final assembly of the presentation, ensuring it conveyed authenticity and sincerity. As the deadline approached, she couldn't help but feel nervous. Would it be enough? Could humanity truly convince these advanced beings that they deserved a second chance? On the day of the delivery, Sarah climbed into her jet once again, carrying a digital archive containing Project Unity. The weight of the mission pressed heavily on her shoulders, but she reminded herself why she was doing this, not just for herself, but for everyone on Earth. As her jet ascended toward the largest alien ship, the shimmering barrier parted to allow her entry. Once inside, she found herself in the same chamber as before, surrounded by the glowing beings. This time, however, there was no hesitation. Stepping forward confidently, she held up the archive. "This is who we are," she said, placing the device on a pedestal-like structure in the center of the room. "Our flaws, our dreams, our hopes for the future. Please take the time to understand us, to see that we're worth saving." The lead being studied her for a moment, then activated the archive. Holographic projections filled the chamber, immersing the aliens in humanity's story. They watched intently as images of war gave way to acts of kindness, as destruction transformed into restoration. When the final message, a child's drawing of Earth surrounded by stars, faded away, silence fell over the chamber. For hours, the aliens remained motionless, their glowing eyes fixed on empty space as if processing everything they'd seen. Sarah waited anxiously, unsure whether their reaction would bring salvation or doom. Finally, the lead being turned to her. Its voice rang out, clear and resonant. "Your efforts are commendable. You have shown us that your species possesses the capacity for change. However, trust must be earned over time." Sarah exhaled sharply, relief flooding through her. "Does this mean you won't intervene?" she asked cautiously. "For now," the being replied. "But know this. We will continue to observe. Should your actions threaten the balance of the universe, we will act." It wasn't a guarantee of safety, but it was a reprieve, and a chance for humanity to prove itself. As Sarah returned to Earth, she carried with her the knowledge that the fate of the planet now depended on whether humans could rise to meet the challenge. When she landed, the world erupted in celebration. News outlets broadcast live coverage of Sarah's return, hailing her as a hero. People gathered in streets and squares, waving flags and chanting slogans of unity. For the first time in history, humanity felt truly connected, not just to each other, but to something greater. But Sarah knew the work wasn't over. The aliens' warning lingered in her mind, a reminder that survival required more than good intentions. It demanded action. And as she looked up at the sky, now clear and unbroken, she vowed to dedicate herself to ensuring that humanity didn't squander its second chance. The star destroyers remained in orbit for several days before disappearing without a trace. Though their presence faded, their impact lingered. Governments pledged to cooperate more closely, prioritizing environmental restoration and peaceful innovation. Ordinary citizens embraced newfound hope, inspired by the idea that humanity could grow beyond its limitations. Sarah returned to her duties at the airbase, but she was no longer the same person. Once ridiculed for her beliefs, she was now respected and listened to. Her journey had changed not only her life but the course of human history. And while the road ahead promised challenges, one thing was certain: humanity had taken its first step toward becoming part of something larger than itself. The days following Sarah's encounter with the aliens were a whirlwind of activity. News of the Star Destroyers and humanity's narrow escape from judgment spread across the globe like wildfire. People everywhere, from bustling cities to remote villages, were talking about it. Social media platforms were flooded with hashtags like Tlangsher Project Unity and Kainchung's Second Chance, while news channels broadcast endless debates and analyses. Some praised Sarah as a hero, others criticized governments for keeping such encounters hidden for so long. Amidst the chaos, one thing was clear. Earth had been given an opportunity to prove itself, and failure wasn't an option. Governments around the world scrambled to respond. Emergency summits were held in major capitals, bringing together leaders from every continent. For the first time in history, political rivalries took a backseat to a shared goal, ensuring humanity's survival. The United Nations convened a special assembly where representatives debated how best to address the alien warning. Should they prepare for war or focus on diplomacy? Opinions were divided, but Sarah's voice stood out amidst the noise. At the UN meeting, Sarah addressed a packed auditorium filled with diplomats, scientists, and military officials. Her speech was simple yet powerful. "We've been handed a chance to rewrite our story," she began, standing tall despite the weight of the moment. "But this isn't just about avoiding destruction. It's about building something better. If we want to earn the trust of those beings watching us, we need to show them that we're capable of change." Her words resonated deeply. Inspired by her courage, world leaders agreed to collaborate on a global initiative called Harmonia Terra, a Latin phrase meaning harmony of Earth. The program aimed to tackle humanity's biggest challenges: climate change, poverty, inequality, and conflict. It wasn't just about appeasing the aliens. It was about creating a sustainable future for all life on the planet. Back at the airbase, Sarah became the face of Harmonia Terra. She traveled extensively, speaking at conferences, schools, and community events to rally support for the cause. Everywhere she went, people listened, not because she was famous, but because she spoke with conviction. She shared stories of her encounters with the aliens, emphasizing their concerns about humanity's destructive tendencies. Yet she also reminded audiences of the beauty and potential within human nature, the creativity, resilience, and capacity for kindness that made Earth unique. Despite her growing influence, Sarah faced resistance. Not everyone believed the aliens' warnings or trusted their intentions. Conspiracy theories proliferated online, with some claiming the entire incident was staged by governments to control populations. Others argued that preparing for war was more practical than focusing on environmental reforms. Even within the military, there were factions advocating for increased defense spending and the development of advanced weaponry to counter any potential alien threat. Colonel Harris found himself caught between these opposing views. As Sarah's commanding officer, he supported her efforts, but he also understood the importance of being prepared for the worst-case scenario. He authorized the creation of a new task force, codenamed Skyward Shield, tasked with monitoring alien activity and developing strategies to protect Earth if negotiations failed. Jake, Sarah's co-pilot and closest ally, volunteered to lead the team, balancing his role as a soldier with his newfound belief in diplomacy. Meanwhile, scientists worked tirelessly to analyze data collected during Sarah's encounters. Teams of linguists, physicists, and biologists collaborated to decode the aliens' language and understand their technology. One breakthrough came when researchers discovered that the shimmering barrier surrounding the Star Destroyers operated on principles similar to quantum entanglement, a phenomenon once thought impossible to harness. This revelation sparked excitement among engineers, who began exploring ways to adapt the technology for peaceful purposes, such as clean energy production and faster-than-light communication. As months passed, signs of progress emerged. Renewable energy projects gained momentum, with countries investing heavily in solar, wind, and geothermal power. Deforestation rates slowed as nations implemented stricter conservation laws. Conflicts simmered down as diplomatic efforts intensified, driven by the shared realization that humanity couldn't afford internal strife while facing external threats. But not everything went smoothly. Resistance to change remained strong in certain quarters. Powerful corporations lobbied against environmental regulations, fearing losses in profit. Politicians clashed over funding priorities, with some arguing that resources should be allocated to defense rather than sustainability initiatives. Protests erupted in several cities, reflecting the deep divisions within society. Sarah witnessed these struggles firsthand. During a visit to a coal mining town facing economic collapse due to new green policies, she encountered angry residents who accused her of destroying livelihoods. "You think saving the planet is easy?" one man shouted during a heated town hall meeting. "What about us? Who's going to save our families?" Sarah listened patiently, her heart aching for their plight. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't offer empty promises. Instead, she acknowledged their pain and urged them to see the bigger picture. "Change is hard," she admitted, "but sticking to the past won't solve anything. We have to find new ways to thrive, to create jobs that don't cost us our future. That's what Harmonia Terra is all about." Her honesty earned grudging respect from some, though others remained unconvinced. Still, Sarah refused to give up. She knew that transforming humanity wouldn't happen overnight. It would take patience, persistence, and compromise. One evening, as Sarah returned to the airbase after another long day of advocacy work, she received an unexpected message. A group of scientists working on the alien data had uncovered something extraordinary. Evidence suggesting the aliens weren't just observers, they were caretakers. According to their findings, civilizations across the galaxy relied on a delicate balance maintained by advanced species, like the ones now hovering above Earth. These beings acted as stewards, intervening when necessary to prevent catastrophic imbalances caused by younger races. The revelation changed everything. Humanity wasn't merely being judged. It was being evaluated as a potential candidate for stewardship. If successful, Earth could one day join the ranks of protector species, contributing to the preservation of life throughout the universe. But failure would mean isolation, or worse, eradication. Sarah shared the discovery with Colonel Harris and other key figures involved in Harmonia Terra. "This is bigger than us," she said, her voice trembling with awe. "It's not just about surviving, it's about becoming part of something greater." The news reignited global enthusiasm for the initiative. People rallied behind the idea of earning a place among the stars, seeing it as both a challenge and an honor. Efforts to combat climate change accelerated, with innovations emerging at an unprecedented pace. Cities transformed into eco-friendly hubs powered by renewable energy. Schools introduced programs teaching students about interstellar ethics and planetary responsibility. Even skeptics began to soften their stance. Military budgets shifted toward research and development, focusing on technologies that could benefit humanity without posing a threat to the aliens. Jake's Skyward Shield team transitioned from purely defensive operations to disaster relief missions, using their skills to aid communities affected by natural disasters and resource shortages. Through it all, Sarah remained steadfast in her mission. Though celebrated as a hero, she stayed grounded, reminding herself why she'd embarked on this journey in the first place. Every small victory brought hope, but she knew the real test lay ahead. The aliens hadn't left entirely. They still lingered in orbit, silent sentinels observing humanity's progress. Their decision would determine Earth's fate. As Sarah looked up at the night sky, now free of shimmering cracks, she felt a mix of pride and determination. Humanity had taken its first steps toward proving itself worthy, but the road ahead promised trials, and Sarah was ready to face them head-on. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: the story of Earth had changed forever. Months turned into years, and humanity continued its journey toward transformation. The Star Destroyers had long since vanished from Earth's skies, but their presence lingered in the collective consciousness of billions. Every decision made, whether by governments, corporations, or individuals, was shaped by the knowledge that they were being watched. Humanity wasn't alone anymore, and this realization brought both hope and responsibility. Sarah Mitchell became more than a symbol. She became a guiding light for a world striving to evolve. Her name was spoken with reverence in classrooms, boardrooms, and even war-torn regions where peace talks replaced gunfire. She traveled tirelessly, speaking at conferences, meeting with leaders and visiting communities affected by change. Her message remained consistent. We are capable of greatness, not just for ourselves, but for all life. Yet, despite her optimism, Sarah carried a quiet burden. She knew the aliens hadn't left Earth entirely. Their ships still orbited unseen, monitoring humanity's progress like silent judges. Would they deem Earth worthy? Or would they decide that humanity posed too great a risk to the cosmic balance? The uncertainty weighed heavily on her, but it also fueled her determination. By the 5th year after first contact, remarkable progress had been achieved. Cities once choked by smog now thrived under clear blue skies, powered by renewable energy sources. Forests reclaimed land lost to deforestation, thanks to massive reforestation efforts led by volunteers from every corner of the globe. Conflicts simmered down as nations embraced diplomacy over aggression, inspired by the idea that unity was humanity's only path forward. One of the most significant breakthroughs came from scientists working on alien technology. Using data collected during Sarah's encounters, researchers developed revolutionary advancements in clean energy production and sustainable agriculture. Quantum entanglement-based systems allowed instant communication across vast distances, bridging gaps between remote communities and fostering global collaboration. These innovations not only improved life on Earth but also demonstrated humanity's potential to contribute positively to the universe. Education played a crucial role in reshaping society. Schools introduced curricula focused on interstellar ethics, teaching children about coexistence, environmental stewardship, and the interconnectedness of all life. Art flourished as well, with musicians, painters, and writers drawing inspiration from humanity's newfound place in the cosmos. Murals depicting Earth surrounded by stars adorned city walls, while symphonies celebrating unity echoed through concert halls worldwide. But perhaps the most profound shift occurred within people themselves. Acts of kindness multiplied as individuals recognized their shared destiny. Neighbors helped one another rebuild after disasters. Strangers offered support to those in need. Even small gestures, a smile, a helping hand, carried deeper meaning in a world united by purpose. Despite these achievements, challenges persisted. Resistance to change never fully disappeared. Powerful industries fought against stricter regulations, fearing losses in profit. Some political factions argued that focusing solely on sustainability weakened Earth's defenses, urging increased military spending instead. Social unrest occasionally flared up, driven by fears of economic instability or cultural upheaval. Sarah faced criticism too. Once hailed as a hero, she now bore the brunt of frustration from those struggling to adapt. During a visit to a factory town grappling with job losses due to green policies, angry workers confronted her. "You're tearing our lives apart," one man shouted. "What good is saving the planet if we can't feed our families?" Sarah listened without interrupting, her expression calm but empathetic. When it was her turn to speak, she didn't sugarcoat the truth. "Change is painful," she admitted. "I won't lie to you, it won't be easy, but sticking to the past isn't an option. We have to find new ways to thrive, to build economies that don't cost us our future. That's what Harmonia Terra is all about." Her honesty earned grudging respect from some, though others remained unconvinced. Still, Sarah refused to give up. She believed in humanity's ability to rise above adversity, no matter how daunting the obstacles. Then, one day, the aliens returned. It began with a faint shimmer in the sky, an almost imperceptible ripple that grew brighter and wider until it split open, revealing the familiar silhouette of a star destroyer. Panic swept across the globe as memories of the initial encounter resurfaced. Were they here to judge humanity? To intervene? Sarah immediately took charge, coordinating with Colonel Harris and Jake's Skyward Shield team to prepare for whatever might come next. "Stay calm," she urged during an emergency briefing. This isn't the time to panic. Let's show them what we've accomplished. As the alien ship descended, Sarah climbed into her jet once again. This time, she went. Alone, Jake protested, insisting on accompanying her, but Sarah shook her head. This is my fight, she said firmly. If I'm wrong, if we haven't done enough, then I'll face the consequences. When her jet entered the shimmering barrier, she found herself back in the same chamber as before, surrounded by the glowing beings. Their expressions were unreadable, but their eyes seemed warmer somehow, as if they'd softened toward her species. You have worked hard, the lead being said, its voice resonating like chimes. Your efforts have not gone unnoticed. Relief washed over Sarah, though she remained cautious. Does this mean we've earned your trust, she asked. The being paused, exchanging silent signals with its companions. Finally, it spoke again. Trust is not given lightly. However, you have shown sufficient growth to warrant cooperation. We will assist you in restoring your planet further and advancing peaceful technologies. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she processed the words. Humanity had passed the test, or at least part of it. The aliens weren't leaving. They were staying to help. Back on Earth, news of the agreement sparked celebration unlike anything the world had ever seen. People poured into streets and squares, waving flags and chanting slogans of unity. Fireworks lit up the night sky as music filled the air. For the first time in history, humanity felt truly connected, not just to each other but to something greater. Under the guidance of the aliens, Earth entered a new era of collaboration. Advanced technologies were shared, accelerating humanity's progress in fields like medicine, energy, and space exploration. Environmental restoration projects reached unprecedented scales. Healing ecosystems thought to be beyond repair. Even conflicts faded as nations embraced the idea that cooperation yielded far greater rewards than competition. Sarah returned to her duties at the airbase, but her role had changed. No longer just a pilot, she became an ambassador, bridging the gap between humans and their extraterrestrial allies. Her days were filled with meetings, negotiations, and public appearances, yet she never lost sight of her mission. Every decision she made reflected her unwavering belief in humanity's potential. Years later, as Sarah stood on a hill overlooking a thriving city bathed in golden sunlight, she reflected on how far they'd come. The sky above was clear, free of shimmering cracks or looming ships. Humanity had proven itself worthy, not perfect, but willing to grow. And though the road ahead promised challenges, Sarah knew they were ready to face them together. Earth's story had changed forever. From a divided planet teetering on the brink of destruction, it had become a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of unity, resilience, and determination. As Sarah gazed at the horizon, she smiled, knowing that humanity's journey among the stars had only just begun.